Hi, this is Beth at BB Arts. I have a purse here that I've been carrying for years, and I love it so much. It's a messenger style bag, and well, I've never been able to find another one like it. And I really hate giving it up, but it's finally worn out, and well, it's time for a new purse. But before I could get rid of this one, I started looking at it and thinking, well, maybe it's not time to get rid of it. Perhaps if I took it apart, maybe I could end up with a piece of leather large enough that I could make a nice cover for a Midori style traveler's notebook. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to take the whole purse apart by the seams here and remove all the stitching and take it apart and see what pieces of leather I can salvage from this purse and see if I have enough here to make a cover for a Midori style traveler's notebook. So I'm going to pause now and I'll be back after I take it apart. Alright, I'm back now. I've taken all the stitching out of the purse and I took it apart into these pieces of leather. Then I turned it over and I took all the fabric lining out so that I'm down to just the leather pieces. And I think that this large piece will be the best piece to use. And maybe this strip along here will help me with the edging. So I'm going to take the other pieces and just sit them to the side. And I may use them for another project or I may need them for something else. And what I'm going to do is take this one piece of leather. Now there's a flap here that I would like to leave on there. It's stitched very nicely along the edge here. However, there's none on this side. So what I'm going to do is take this piece of leather and I'm going to stitch it onto the side here so that I have two flaps on the side and then just cut it right across the top. Now, I've already pre-measured this and I want it to be 8.5 inches this way and at least 10 to 11 inches this way. So I've already measured it, and what I'm going to do is cut it, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to stitch this piece of leather onto the end using the same holes that are in this piece and also this piece. That's going to take me some time, so I'm not going to have you sit here and watch me go through every stitch. But basically what I'm going to do is take the two pieces of leather and put them together, and I'm going to go through the same holes and line them up and then come around and go back through the next hole and do that all the way down until I get to the end of the leather. And then I'm going to come back around and go back through the holes and go back. So it's going to be stitched twice, but there's going to be a stitch in every hole so I won't miss any. And then tie it off here. And then these two pieces will be stitched together the same way that this one is. And the edges will match, and I'll have a little bit of a flap in the traveler's notebook that I can put maybe business cards or notes or something like that in. So I'm going to pause again, and I'm going to cut this and then stitch it, and I'll be right back. Right, I'm back now. I put the two pieces of leather together and stitched them, and then I cut across the top and the bottom. So now the leather measures 10.5 inches by 8.5 inches. Then I went to the very center and I punched holes 1/4 inch from the top and then 1/2 inch, then at the very center, and then I went to the bottom 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. I didn't have a leather punch, so what I did is put a block of wood behind it, and I used a phillips screwdriver and just hit it with a hammer and punctured a hole in the leather. And then I went back with a small pair of scissors and I just stretched the holes a little bit. You don't need too big of a hole because you're only using a small piece of elastic cord. You just need enough for the cord to go through. And then I decided for a decorative feature I would use 2 metal buttons. This is optional, but I thought it would look nice. So then I went to the fabric store and I bought a package of round elastic cord. And I cut a piece 24 inches long. So now I'm going to lace this through, and I'm going to go in through the top hole. And this is where I'm going to put the button, and that's going to go through. and then I'm going to come back in through the next hole. Doesn't seem to want to go through that hole, so we'll have to use a little pair of scissors to push it through. There we go. And I want to line this button up so that it's tucked in tight, like that. Then I'm going to take the long end and I'm going to go all the way down to the very last hole in the bottom and go out, and again put the button on this way. And like I said, the button is optional, but I think it looks a little bit nicer. And then I'm going to put this through the next hole. And make sure that lines up and I don't have it twisted. And I'm going to bring this all the way up, and I'm going to pull this a little bit so that it pulls the leather together, like that. Now I'm going to keep a short end up here, and I'm going to keep a long end sticking up that way, and pull this and tie a knot up here. And you're probably wondering, why leave that long tail? Well, in case later on I want to add another strand, I can just punch another hole in here and bring another strand down. But until then, I can just use that as a bookmark. There. And that can come through as a bookmark. Or later on, I can punch a hole in on either side and run another strand through. That's coming undone. There we go. Now, and that's pretty much all the threading I have to do. Then I decided, this cord was, by the way, 24 inches long. I cut a 10-inch piece of, instead of using the round cord, which I thought would be a little bit thin to hold this together, I decided to go for a wider cord. Now, this is an oval elastic, and this is nothing more than the core of it is made out of this, and then they have a decorative stitch on both sides, which makes it a little bit wider and it'll lay flatter. So I think that would be a better choice for holding this together. So now I took a 10-inch length, tied a knot in the end, and I'm just going to put this through the center hole. Trying to get that in there. It's not cooperating. There we go. That time it went through. And of course that knot is going to keep it from coming all the way through. So now I have the two decorative buttons here, and then this heavier cord which will come across. And that's all that's necessary for stringing this. So I'm going to set that to the side, and now we're going to look at the booklets that are going to go inside. Now you can purchase these, and you can buy a package of them at your craft store in the journaling section. But I find it's easy to make them, and it's quicker, I think. I made one with lined paper, and it's just loose leaf paper cut. And then I made another one with the dotted grid. And then I made another one over here with watercolor paper. So you can just tear off the sheets. They're perforated, you tear them out, cut them down, and I just used a saddle stitch. And what I did is when I got to the watercolor paper, I decided to wait to stitch it so I could show you how to just do a quick sketchbook. So you cut the cover out of a craft paper, and then you cut the watercolor paper down. I used a lighter weight watercolor paper. This is 93 pound. I found that the 140-pound watercolor paper was just too thick, too hard to fold, and, well, it just didn't work as nicely. So I went down to a 93-pound watercolor paper. I lined them all up and clamped them, and I have a piece of foam here from some packing. And all I do is I use a push pin. And I just go down and I punch a hole in the very center. And all you need is an odd number of holes. So if you want to do 5, that's fine. If you want them closer together and do 7, that's fine. But you just need an odd number. And once you've punched the holes, then you can go back with a needle and thread. And I'm using a heavy polyester thread. So this is going to be, well, pretty strong, and I'll be able to use one strand. But if you're using something lighter, you might want to double it. And I simply threaded it through I use a needlepoint needle. And what you're going to do is go down through the center hole and come through and leave a little bit of a tail. Then you're going to go back up through the next hole. Go down through the next hole. Come back up through the one you came through. We're working our way back down again to the center. Then we go back through the next hole this way, and we're going to go down through the bottom hole, and we're going to come back up through this one, working our way back up to the middle section. Then I'm going to flip this over, and I'm just going to go through this thread here that I went through and make a loop and just put this through and knot it like that. My little tail is getting in the way. There we go. And just to be on the safe side, I always do it a couple times. And you're just taking it through and putting it through and making a knot. Yeah, 3's a charm, right? Might as well do it. Then I'm going to go back through the center hole and I'm going to tie it off. So it's a very quick way to stitch this. Now if you wanted to, you could staple this, because a stapler will reach in that far. It's only about maybe 4¼ inches. So if you have a long arm stapler, you could probably reach that. But I still like the stitching. I think it looks nicer. Okay. And now I can just take off these clamps. And I now have a watercolor sketchbook. Just like that. Pretty easy. And I'm going to go through and just score these pages a little bit. So now I have 3 quick sketchbooks that I can put in here. So what I'm going to do is, I think I want my dotted grid in the center. So I'm going to put that through the elastic like this. Just like that. So that's in. Then I'm going to cut another piece of elastic. This was about 10 inches long. Well, actually 20, because it's doubled. And I'm going to loop it over. Then, let's see, I'll put this one in the front. And I can just loop this through here. and then put this one in the back. So you're not using the center elastic, you're just using the full length ones. You're not using this short one down here in the back that we tied. So then you just line these all up. I want to stretch this up here a little bit and get these all lined up. Get them in nice. And so now all the books are in. And the book will hold close. Well, I should put that bookmark in. And the elastic band will go across. And you can see this wider elastic, I think, looks a little bit better than the thin one. And it's probably sturdier too. Now, a lot of people like to use embellishments and so forth on their journals. So while I was at the Dollar Tree, I happened to come across these stickers. And there's 40 stickers in here. And I thought, well, that's kind of nice, and I like the looks of them. And there's 2 sheets of them. But I thought, how am I going to carry it around in here? I need something that will hold them. So I thought I need a plastic sleeve to put in here. So what I did is I took one of these plastic page sleeves, and where it's sealed here, I came out about 1/8 of an inch, just enough to cut off the holes. And I cut them off, and then I measured 8 1/4 inches and cut it across so that I ended up with something like this. I know it's probably hard to see on the camera. Maybe if I put it against here, you can see it. And I just cut it so that I have, everything is still sealed. And then I folded it in half and creased it. So now all I have to do is place this underneath here, like this, and pull it through. And I now have a sleeve to hold my stickers. The only thing is I have to cut them. So what I'm going to do is cut these into strips without cutting the actual sticker. There's one. And just cut them into long strips like this. And I don't want to crowd them and shove them into all the same holder. So what I'm going to do is put the larger ones together. And I'm going to put them in this front sleeve. Like this. Now that bothers me, it's upside down. And then go back to the other one, like this. And put some in that sleeve. Kind of balance it off a little. Like that. And so now I can carry my stickers around inside. And now everything fits into the Traveler's Journal. While I was at the Dollar Tree, I happened to come across these mechanical pencils that I thought would match beautifully. And I couldn't decide between which one to get, so I got them both. But you can put this together, and, you know, this all came from one leather purse that I just didn't want to give up. And I was able to make a nice traveler's journal that I can now carry around in my new purse. And, well, use it every day, and I still have my old friend. I don't have to give it up. And, well, maybe you might want to try making one of these. If you don't have an old purse to cut up, you can always buy the leather at the craft store, or go into a fabric store and buy the leatherette type and make your own Midori style traveler's notebook and, well, have something personalized to meet your needs.